No woman deserves to be abused because of her widow status, and no woman should lose her right as a woman because she lost her husband. This is the message that Roseline Orwa, the founder and director of Rona Foundation, is passing across all over the country to empower widows, support orphans, and mostly to campaign for the society to stop widow abuse. Roseline founded the Rona Foundation 8 years ago to stop the abuse of widowed women in Kenya. This came about from a personal experience after being divorced at the age of 26 and later became widowed at the age of 32.
I became a widow 8 years ago, and that was my second marriage. Previously, I had been brutally divorced as a childless woman. I had my house burnt, my office burnt. I lost a job, I lost a scholarship. I literally had to live on the street for about 6 weeks. So I went into a second marriage with the stigma of a childless, divorced woman. And then I became a widow suddenly at the age of 32. And having an history of being childless and being divorced to the degree that even my mother had to return dowry because I didn't have a child. And so then all of a sudden, my husband was a politician, and one morning he comes home, just one day or two before Kibaki and Raila signed the pact. And then I became a widow at the age of 32. The stigma grew. I came into reality of the face of women who were ostracized. Women who even knew me walked to me and said, "Why did you kill him?" And then I'm like, oh, how would I kill somebody that I really wanted to spend the rest? Someone who accepted me out of my childlessness and out of the stigma that I already had. And this woke me up to the reality of women like me.
Life was not easy for Roseline after losing her husband, who was a politician. She was falsely accused of his death, a situation that made it difficult for her to relate with friends, close relatives, and even the villagers who were behind these accusations. In the process, she was mistreated and segregated.
I couldn't shake hands. I couldn't share a cup. I couldn't go to the well. I couldn't go to the garden. In fact, during the burial, they even told me, you can't put, when they drop the soil, you can't drop the soil because you are too young. You may want to remarry. So the do's and don'ts were so huge. And the stigma was real. I became this black sheep woman who, one, was divorced because of childlessness, and two, here again, she's killing another man. I became the woman nobody should touch, nobody should talk to, nobody should relate with. And this stigma is what kept on boiling inside me.
When you lost your friends, you lost your husband, at one point, did you feel like committing suicide?
Oh, really, I tried many things. Before God healed me, before I found healing, before I found my voice, before I found acceptance, I remember I lived on the street. I remember I lost 26. I was already divorced and childless. I couldn't have children. I almost lost my life. I had 3 surgeries in a span of 3 years. Ectopic pregnancy, ovarian cyst, tubes blocked. 3 surgeries in a span of 3 years. I can tell you really, I've tried drinking. I have tried committing suicide. I have tried walking on the road for the vehicle to knock me. I have tried even buying a rat to kill myself. One time I tried hanging myself in a bathroom. This man who picked me from the street, and I lived in his in Umoja, in one of those they're called lodges. The 200. And one time I went into the bathroom and I wanted to hang myself, to kill myself. And then, the way you put unaweka ndoo alafu hata stool nilikuwa nimeweka tu ndoo. Then I slipped and broke my toe. Then I discovered, I'm going to die. I'm going to break my toe before I kill myself. So somehow, for me, I think I'm one of those lucky women who God comes to save. A voice came and told me, even this is not it. Even killing yourself is not it. So I discovered that even those things were still not going to fill the hole in my heart. My heart had been so hollow, so broken, so lonely, that nothing could fill it except the one thing that doesn't live, and that's God. And that's how I have survived it.
It is through this pain, loneliness, stigma, and abuse that led her to establish the Rona Foundation, which advocates for the rights of widows in Kenya.
Widows would reach me on phone and actually say, this is my story. I was disinherited. I lost everything. I was made to sleep with a dead body. I was given, the water from washing the dead body to drink. I was given concussions that are even poisoned. My children were put under humiliating cultural practices, made to shower in the bush in the wee hours of the night. I was, women came to watch when I'm being cleansed and inherited, and this is actually a sexual, act happening. And then the next day they slaughtered a goat. So women reached me with deep, dark, humiliating stories of what they went through when they lost their husbands. And that gave me more courage. This is not only my story. This is the story of so many other women out there. The only thing lacking, it needs to be told. Then I closed my business and I started campaigning of Stop Widow Abuse.
Many of the members in our foundation are majorly from slum areas in Nairobi.
Sisi tunafanya nini? Tunateseka. Tunatafuta nini? Usaidizi. Na tunataka nini? Mabadiliko. Hivyo tu.
After losing her husband, Roseline began sharing experiences together with other widowed women whom she would frequently meet during a selling of clothes business. From here, she saw the opportunity to begin this foundation.
I was grieving. I knew the color of grief. I knew what shades it took. Because I would see myself inside these women. And I would sit, and of course they would share with me their stories, and she's actually my client. And I would also share my story. And then the bond grew. So every Saturday, a widow came with another widow. What I discovered at that time, 8 years ago, is that most of the women who live in the slums and who work in open air markets, most of them were widows. And most of them, the things that would have happened to me in the village if my father-in-law didn't protect me and my mother-in-law, the thing that I was exposed to as a widow in the village, they were actually been exposed to, and some of them had actually been cleansed and inherited, shaved, their hair shaved, their children taken away from them, and so here they were trying to find a life and economic support, living in the slums, their children becoming even going to crime, HIV, fighting with diseases, fighting with economic needs. So these women were literally left on their own. And here they found a hub inside my house every single Saturday. So we started with 4 women, then it grew to 10, then it grew to 20. Then one time on a Saturday, it grew to around 28.
Roseline later closed down her business to be an activist for these widows and eventually made it a full-time job.
And we had prayer, sharing, crying, eating, laughing, supporting, advising. A whole session of just the true nature of what widow is. And from that moment, I started calling, but I think I was being abused. I think these women are being abused alongside myself. And then that's how I came to call it widow abuse. I introduced the word widow abuse for the first time in the country.
Rona Foundation benefits more than 150 orphans from their programs by offering education sponsorship, provision of foodstuffs, and clothing. Roseline has created a network of widows across the country, and they frequently meet to share their experiences and encourage each other with the purpose of empowering themselves.
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Amina Hassan na ni mkaaji wa Githurai 45. Na kwa ufupi, mimi ni mjane, na ujane wangu niliachwa 1996. Wakati huo nilikuwa na shida sana. Nilikuwa naishi na mume wangu na tulipata naye watoto 3 mwanzo. Ule nilikuwa naye kwa tumbo alikuwa 4. Sasa mume wangu akifa nilikuwa na mimba ya miezi 8. Baadaye akaaga, nikazaa. Nikiwa nazaa tulimzika. Na baada ya kumzika ukweli nilipata mashida mingi sana. Nilipitia shida, changamoto nyingi kwa sababu hawa watu wa kina bwana walikuwa hawanitaki. Simply before, kwa sababu bwana amefanya nini? Shakufa. Walikuwa wanadai mali ya mtoto wao. Sasa mimi nikawauliza nitatoa wapi hii mali au nitakwenda wapi mkichukua mali yake, na mimi na watoto. Hawakutaka kujua wala hawakushughulika na mimi.
Niko hapa kwa sababu ya sauti ya wamama ya wajane. Sasa mimi bwanangu amekufa 2007. 2009. Sasa tangu amekufa hakuna mwenye ameshughulika na watoto yangu. Niko na watoto 3 nimezaa na yeye. Kwa hivyo tunaomba Waislamu wenye Mungu amewabariki amepatia mali asaidie Islamu wenzake, aangalie watoto ya wayatima, shughulikia wamama wajane. Kila mali wajane wako lazima iko msikiti ya Islamu wanasimamia wamama ya yatima na watoto. Kwa hivyo sisi wajane tumesaulika, serikali atuone, atushughulikieni, na Islamu mwenye Mungu amebarikia mali atushughulikie.
Lakini tuomba tushughulikiwe, tuangaliwe maisha yetu na watoto wetu. Manake tuna mbele wala nyuma. Manake unajua mtu akiachwa ni mume hana uwezo kama hana kazi. Na mume ndio kila kitu. Kama una mume, wewe ni mjane na una yatima.
And what is the role of the society pertaining widows?
Society at large. This woman who is married, who is a widowed, she's just a woman like any other. I'm just like you, Aurelia. I am just like the next Jane. The only thing is I lost my husband. So why look at me differently? Perhaps I know much more than you. I have endured death. I have survived it. All these women have survived death. These women are the greatest pillars of society. So why are you abusing them? Really? They are your sisters. They are your mothers. They are your cousins. They are your daughters. Why are you abusing them? Where does love stop and where does hate start? Society must really relook at itself. And individually, everybody has stigmatized and abused a widow. Everybody, including myself when I didn't know. But now that I know better, I do better.
Through this initiative, widows who were homeless now have a place where they can call home.
I went into social media. I got these widows from the village who had dilapidated, grass-thatched fallen houses. The church had ignored them. The local administration had ignored them. Their own relatives had run away from them because they had refused cleansing and inheritance. So I would post the photo and then I would ask my friend, can we build for this, sponsor a house for a widow? Can we build for a widow a house? And then people would raise money on our tail number. And then we built one widow house, second widow house. By the time I went to the village to start building the widow houses, everybody called me crazy.
Besides being a widow, Roseline is a cancer survivor, and this didn't make things easy for her.
People were, because cancer kills, that's what everybody knows. And so even my relatives were saying, are you talking to your in-laws? Where are we going to bury you? They're telling my mother, can she come to the village and wait for her death? How will I pay my bills? This is not my house. I'm renting it to do this work. So how is she going to pay her bills? I was being killed while I'm alive. You know, I remember one of my sister-in-laws sending me a text message and say, such bad news you can't tell us like that on text. God. I mean, I was still another face of stigma. And then, of course, last December, I lost my mother. And so I'm childless. I run this center. I run this amazing program. People think I have money to do it. I don't have money.
Roseline is spearheading the Widows Bill, which she intends to present to the National Assembly. The bill aims to give a chance to widows to represent themselves in the county and national assemblies across the country. One thing she considers achievement was when the widow cleansing was banned under the Domestic Offences Bill, and a meeting with the President Uhuru Kenyatta in Kisumu as the National Chair of Widows, also known as Sauti ya Wajane, Kenya. Perhaps those women who are watching you, especially widows, what's your message to them? I know there are some of them who have lost hope in life. They've been neglected by their families and they're not able to forge ahead in life. What's your message to them?
Aurelia, to the widows, I have met 20 types of widows in a small book I'm writing. The hardest type of who suffer most are the childless, girls only, and polygamous widows. The era of widows masquerading as helpless is long gone. They have to come together in their community. And hopefully, we are also going to reach them through the networks of chapters in the counties. The widows have been used for far too long to achieve political mileage. It is for them now to say, even as we want the national cake, we deserve it. But they must find their voice together as a group, without fear, without favor, without shame, because they too are women and their vulnerability is deeper than the ordinary married woman.
For Islamia TV, the power of a woman, I'm Aurelia Ngina.